Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.
That's fire.
The beat is fire. The instrumental is fire. The hook, it's not even J. Cole's song. He's on the song with someone else. I think it's this guy named Omen. I think it's his artist.
It's one of his artists, yeah. One of his original artists.
The song is just incredible, bro. But anyways, a lot of what's interesting about that is the way he raps it. It's kind of like spoken word. It's like the way he was saying it and like the nuances and just the cadence.
Yeah.
Everything was just so influential, bro. I love the song. It's one of my favorite songs of the year.
Yeah. Cage Bird.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that.
I'm glad you said it, man. And you got a hell of a flow on you too, man.
I appreciate it, boy. It's not my flow. It's I can imitate the heck out of somebody else's.
But imitation is an art too.
Yeah, fair enough.
So you just it's delivery.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just delivered the hell out of that, man.
I appreciate it. I love that song to death. Spoken word. So when did you have your first legit stage play though?
Oh man,
I don't know if it was someone else's or your own.
So my first legit stage play. So I did my first whack one. No, I was just playing. I never did a whack. That was a joke. Nobody laughed.
Amateur. Let's use the word amateur. Right?
No. I came out the gate banging on them.
Humble.
On my mama.
Humble.
So man, my first stage play ever, man. So first, let's talk about how I got there.
Yep.
I realized that at first I just wanted to be a poet. I wanted to be a writer. Then and then it transitioned to I just want to be a spoken word poet. I'm gonna perform at every open mic around the world.
Wait, what's the difference? You want to write, but okay,
yeah,
okay.
We'll get there. We'll get there. I got no
problems.
I got you on the hood. I got you, B.
Straight up.
All right, so I wanted to just be a writer, a spoken word poet, right? I just wanted to write, which is why I started my own newspaper, The Essence of Blackness. I wanted to write. I wanted to share our stories, right? I wanted to share our narrative, right? Yeah. So I wanted to be a writer, and I wanted to be a spoken word poet so I can get on stage and perform, impact people, right? I realized, like, man, I discovered Ntozake Shange for Color Girls, right? So she wrote the play For Color Girls, which was a series of 21 poems, one of the most impactful stage plays in American history, right? God rest her soul. So when I saw that stage play, that's when I realized that it was possible to take poems and make a theatrical production. So in 2013, I said, I ain't really right. I'm gonna take these poems that I've written and I'm gonna turn it into a stage play. So I wrote a stage play called The Odds Against Us, which was a play that talked about the reality of black youth, but from their own perspective. So while I was a substitute teacher and then later on a teacher's assistant at North Little Rock Academy, Argenta, the alternative school in North Little Rock, Arkansas, when I was working with those students who were supposedly bad, who were troubled, who were juveniles, who had a lot of issues at home or in the streets or in the world, right? I wanted to tell that story because they were so much like me. They were teen parents. They had brothers in prison. They didn't have fathers. They had parents who were drug dealers. They had mothers who were absent. They dealt with every type of obstacle you could imagine for a child who existed in poverty, right? So I wanted to tell that story. So I started writing poems about them. I created that stage play in 2013. I put it on at the Argenta Community Theater. And it was a bang, right? And I've been doing that stage play ever since 2013. It's still a play that I do at least every other year, right? But that was the first play, and that's why it all happened, because I realized that I can make more impact not through just a poem. I can get on stage and do a poem for 3 minutes, right? Do a 3-minute poem or a 5-minute poem, right? But what about when I turn it into a full stage production, right? Now, I don't just give them a snippet of the story. Now I have an opportunity to give them a full viewing of the story, right? To share all perspectives, the beginning, middle, end, the backstory, all of that. And I was able to tour those. So my stage plays, I toured.
Like a lot more work.
Yeah, it's a lot more work, but it's a lot more fulfilling, right? Because now I got these, but it is so powerful because I get to see these actors, right? Take my words and bring them to life. But what makes me feel so good is to look out to the audience and see people responding and feeling and receiving my artwork, right? As a writer, as a playwright, as a director, I get to see that. Like, people coming to me afterwards, like, man, I felt that. Seeing kids and grown folks cry, right? I ain't gonna lie, I love seeing people cry to my work.
Without a doubt.
I mean, because that's when I know it's doing something.
Listen, you good.
that's when I know my work is doing something. Like when art is meant to inspire people to do or feel, right? Art ain't just meant to be admired. Art is activism, right? Art is meant to make you do, to act, right? So when I see my art making people do, like, oh shoot, I'm finna leave here and not be racist no more. I'm finna leave here and not be a deadbeat human, right? I'm gonna leave here and I'm gonna be more whatever, right? Which is why my stage play "Dear Black People" was such a it's such a hit. You know, it won. Shout out to "Dear Black People" and my cast that made that a success. We won festival favorite at the Atlanta Black Theater Festival 2019. That
Congratulations!
Stage play, thank you, man. That stage play, like I think that's my most like activist, pro-black, woke, in your face, honest play ever, and it really moves people to leave different than they did when they came in.
What inspired that play? Dear White People?
Nah, not at all. The title.
Interesting, but believe it or not, I actually thought that is what inspired it. From the standpoint of, they have this show that's called Dear White People, and it's supposed to be centered around stereotypes and showing how these things they are not accurate.
Yeah.
So let's flip that and let's actually show not only stereotypes but things that we're actually doing wrong in the community, how we can learn from it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So Dear White People, it was good. It did what it was supposed to.
I've never watched it, by the way.
Yeah, but Dear Black People. So all my plays that I write start out with one poem, right? And I build from that, right? Usually I begin with the end in mind, right? I usually begin most times with the last poem in the play, and then I work backwards, right? As a playwright. So that's usually how it's happened. So when I wrote Dear Black People, it was like I wrote a poem called Black Criteria that talked about the criteria for being black, right? And then it turned into this concept of, I'm going to say a whole lot of different poems that are letters to black people about black issues and about black solutions that we ourselves as black people can solve, right? So it slowly became a satire that I wrote, and that all came to life. So I think it's about 13 poems now, because I keep adding poems and scenes to it. But yeah, that's what it was. I wanted to write a letter to black people through poem, through theatrical works, through satire, right? Because I wanted black people to be able to see themselves in a comical, creative way, to laugh at it and then say, damn, that's some ignorant shit I be doing. And I'm laughing at myself, right? So you got a scene called Turn Up Radio, where we are like, where we break down the music, right? And so we like, slide on my knob like corn on the cob. Check in with me. Hey, do your job. Late in the bed. Hey, give me head. Don't have to ask. Don't have to beg. Juicy's man. The friends be over. Then he goes on to say, my friends coming over soon. Don't have to ask. Don't have to beg. We're doing a train, right? Without permission, right? So we say that in really comical, theatrical, in a real loud way, and it's like you laughing at it. And then we come back with our sophisticated voice. In other words, leave plenty of saliva on his genitals, and his friends will be over soon to enjoy your involuntary pleasure sharing. So prepare yourself for this gang rape. I mean, menage a trois. I mean, party on your trois, because after all, you asked for it, right? When so we like giving folks, and they saying the lyrics with us, and then we come back and say, you're really promoting rape, right? And they like, oh shit, right? So Dear Black People is a whole lot of that. It's a whole lot of showing you how ignorant we look, and then showing you, man, we got to get out of that.
Chris, the very first time I ever heard about you, maybe I'd heard about you, but the very first time I had ever attended anything Chris James, the first time I had ever attended a stage play, in Little Rock, at least, I've been to a Tyler Perry stage play before. That was a great experience. Was Dear Black People? First of all, the title. All right, the title itself was like, oh, what's this? What's this? And since I've been in Little Rock, being that I'm not from here, as we talked about, this is my, I've lived in Little Rock many times as a child. When my mother and I, we were living in homeless shelters and battered women's shelters, living with my mother's sister and stuff like that. But I've never lived in this area on my own as an adult, and experiencing the college experience and graduating from UCA and all of that. What I've realized is there's a lot of, and I didn't realize this coming here. I should be careful about how I word this. There are a lot of intelligent so-called black people, and there are a lot of intelligent so-called black people with great intentions, with great purpose, who have a lot going on for us, who are great they represent us well. But what I did realize coming here was a completely different experience. Coming from a small town like where I come from, where it's not, you don't see things like this, was like this community of all these great, beautiful, rich in spirit, rich in purpose, so-called black people that go to things like stage plays called Dear Black People and things like that, in these sophisticated parties. And I love every bit of who I am. And I belong here. I want to be a part of this. So when I attended it with my friend Ishma Clark. And he was like, you don't know who Chris James is? And I was like, no, I don't. He said, all right, bro, we got to go. And we go, and I completely understand the second I get there. It was everything and more, bro. I remember leaving there, and my friend, she cried while she was there. And I remember leaving there, and I just thought to myself, where have I been? Where have I been? And to hear this man talk about how he has X, Y, and Z going on in Georgia, and like, I was like, I've never attended anything like this before. I get it. Everything about this play, I get it. I'm for it. And it was easily one of the best experiences I've been here 7 years. And it's easily one of the best experiences I've had since I've been here. I'm not saying that because you're here, right? I don't.
Sure, you're not.
I don't toot anybody's horn just to toot it. If I'm going to toot your horn, it's going to be genuine.
I love it.
It was everything, bro. It was everything. And so that wasn't your first, Dear Black People, wasn't your first stage play.
Nah.
But it was your most successful, influential, you would say?
Yeah, I think so. It's the most award-winning play that I've done. It's the play that I've toured across the country the most. Yeah, man.
Dang, bro, that's big time, bro.
Yeah, Dear Black People is that's my baby. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, she. I'm gonna call her she because
right.
I love women. But yeah, Dear Black People is amazing. I love it.
The TED Talk.
Talk to me.
How did that come about? And explain to me about TED Talks. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I was telling him about this podcast, and he was like, "You know how TED Talks work, right?" And I was like, "No, I don't. Like, when I see people on TED Talk, first of all, you have to be doing something right somewhere, definitely. Or something probably went very wrong in your life, and you turned it around in such a way to where they wanted you to speak on it, right? Something along those lines." And he was like, well, like you can go to many different locations for TED Talks. And I was like, huh?
Yeah.
Really? And he was like, yeah, they have one in Dallas. They have one here, there, and there.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to ask him about this because I was wondering, and I watched the entire thing. I didn't even think, when I watched before you speak on it, before I watched the TED Talk, I'm going into it thinking, oh, Ted. Chris is going to talk, doing this TED Talk about his life, what led him up to this point. A lot of the things I'm gonna talk to him about. Yeah. He's gonna probably answer in this talk. He did that, but he did it in a way like spoken word. Like I didn't see that. Like he wanted the crowd to get engaged. Yeah. I didn't see that. I watched several TED Talks. Yeah. I haven't seen anybody get up there and do something like that. Yeah. So take me through the experience of how it came about. Yeah. And your approach to doing it, was it something you had to debate about, or was it a no-brainer? You're gonna get up there and do spoken word.
Yeah. So yes. So TED Talks was a great experience, man. It really changed my life in many ways. It really put me on this different path than I had been on previously, right? It really showed me a lot of things that were possible. I mean, to be on that TED Talks conference with all the folks that I was on there with, to be on there with like top engineers and architects around the country, to be on there with doctors and with just these big name successful folks. And then in retrospect, I'm like, little old Chris James in 2015 It's been, and I hadn't done nearly as much as I've done now, but even back then, somebody thought I was impactful enough to be on that platform, right? To be on the TED Talk stage. So yeah, man. So when news broke that TED Talks was coming to Arkansas, I was contacted by an organization, a concert arts festival, which is a dope arts festival organization that's in Arkansas now, and they recommended that I meet with the young man who was bringing TED Talks here, and he and I met at a coffee spot, and we talked about my story and what I do and who I am and what I contribute to the community as an artist and as an activist, and he invited me to come on and speak, and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it. And then he told me the process that you have to write your speech out, you have to deliver it verbatim. Like, you can't go up there and freestyle like most of us do sometimes as motivational speakers. Go up there, you just got your outline. Like, no, you need to deliver your TED Talk speech, your presentation verbatim, right? So and then we have
prior?
Then we had to go, like a couple days before the actual conference and practice on stage delivering our speech verbatim, right? And staying within the time limit that they gave us. Right, so it taught me a lot though as far as presentation, which it paid off recently because I just won a $10,000 competition, the Big Pitch, because I was able to explain my entire business within a 2-minute time frame and get the message over. Right, so it really taught me how to because as a motivational speaker, we're a lot like Baptist preachers, and a lot of times we just run over and we get all this fluff in our presentation. But TED Talks really taught me how to trim it down and get to the point and be precise in my message and my delivery. So it was really good for me, man. I loved it. I would do TED Talks again. And a lot of folks don't know, like, a lot of times, in many cases, people are invited to do TED Talks, but there are most TED Talks platforms you can submit to be a TED Talk speaker. So you may have TED Talk Chicago, right? If you go to TED Talk Chicago's website, you can submit your talking idea, and if that board likes it, if it's good, you put it in your resume. It's like a job. You put it in for a job. You want an opportunity to speak on that platform. So if your body of work backs up that you're of value enough to deliver this type of idea to the world on the TED Talk stage, you can also get that opportunity, right? So yeah, you can submit, and you may submit 20 times to 20 different TED Talks across the world, and you may get accepted for one. But if you're a motivational speaker, you owe it to yourself to, number one, build yourself a big enough name, or to have an interesting enough idea to present on the TED Talks platform and submit it. And you may get an opportunity to speak. And
spoken word, with that approach, was a no-brainer for you? Or?
Yeah, it was definitely a no-brainer because I had to stay true to myself. If I didn't, I would have been doing what everybody else was doing, and that's not what I do.
That doesn't define
poetry is my superpower, and I'm aware of that. So I'll be a fool not to go in there with my superpower.
Stick to your bread and butter.
Yeah. So yeah.
Absolutely, man. Do you think, in comparison to comedy, you know how they say that comedy is like so essentially to life, because making someone laugh could momentarily or temporarily make someone forget about what they're stressing about. In comparison to comedy, right? It's still an art, right? But in comparison to comedy, how important do you think poetry play, or how important do you think that is?
Man, all of it is equally as important to life. Because again, I believe wholeheartedly that art saves lives. Poetry saved my life. I even started a program back in 2013 called Poetry Saves Lives, and I work with high school students across Central Arkansas to show them that through poetry you can have a platform to express yourself. And even today, as a teaching artist, I still teach that same philosophy. I go into schools across the country, and I teach young people how to express themselves through poetry, through writing, with an emphasis on social emotional learning, showing young people that through art you can identify your emotions, you can express yourself in this through this platform, and eventually, once all of that is on the table through your art, you can then create solutions to overcome all those obstacles within your issues, right? So I believe that any and all art genre, art mediums, right,
cool.
are ways of coping and overcoming those issues, those mental health issues, those mental illnesses, or those just demons, right, that we're dealing with. Rather it's music, rather it's origami, rather it's painting on shoes.
What was that second one?
Origami.
What is that?
That's the art with paper when you like
building airplanes.
Yeah, that's basically origami. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, right.
I wouldn't think of that though when I think of. Did you know it was called that?
Yeah. So that's basically what it is. I mean, but any art that can create peace for you, right? Some of the greatest art is created when artists are going through shit, right?
All right.
Like I've created my best stage plays when I was stressed out or when I was going through something emotionally. Like no artist creates shit when they just happy.
Right.
I mean, I'm happy. Let me go change. Nobody changes the world when they're happy, right? You change the world around you and in you, right? When you're not comfortable with it. Right? Nobody says, I love my house. Let me go tear down the walls and remodel it.
Right.
Right. So change happens and great art happens, right? When we are uncomfortable with how it presently is. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Dear Black people, Chris.
All right, we back there.
Listen.
And I didn't realize you came, man. Thank you for coming. That's dope.
Dang right I came.
Yeah.
It was the first one I've ever been to in my life.
You should have came and shook my hand afterwards or something.
I believe I did speak to you.
Oh, you did?
I believe, man. You had so many people. You here. You're the Chris James.
Yeah,
be serious. And it was a while ago. Come on,
I got you.
Don't be humble. I met a young lady that I was trying my best to get in touch with, and that I'm now friends with on social media.
Yeah.
What's the African American? Very young. She was like 8. I think she was the youngest one to say 18, short haircut. I always keep a fresh line.
Tasha Mayo. That's
yeah. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
She gets a haircut like every day, or at least it looks like it.
Seriously.
Oh my goodness. She was incredible.
Yeah, she
was. All of y'all did y'all thing, and it was something about her, and I was like, first of all, she's just young. Like she was so young. I believe someone ended up telling me afterwards how old she was.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang.
Yeah, I've been working with her since she was like 11 or 12, man.
That's what it was. I did hear. I found that out that night. That's impressive, bro, to even get up there and do that. Yeah. For those of us who don't do it, and you look up there and you're remembering your lines, which is obviously the basic, but you're so you're colorful. You're believable.
Yeah,
you're believable. You get your point across. It's exceptional. The reason I come back to this play because of the basis of it, and I want to ask you, Chris, if you just had to pick and 3 things. I'm asking Chris James, what does he think the top 3 things is wrong with our people? And by our people, not just quote unquote Black people, but African Americans in particular. What do you think? Not the things that oppress us, right? We understand those things. The things that are internally wrong with us. Now, if it's related to the oppression, of course, you're free to bring that up. The things that we're doing wrong, the things that we could correct, I should say, the things that we could improve. What would you say the top 3 things would be if you just had to go off the top of your head? No particular order.
Man, it's so much, bro. And sadly, most of it is linked to that oppression.
Yep.
Right. I had a conversation with a friend yesterday, another artist, and we kind of checked in with each other, like how you doing mentally and emotionally because of all this shit that's happening, right? The pandemic, the racism, and when I told him, I was like, bro, I'm here, I haven't really been creating as an artist, because I am, like it may look good on social media and all that, but I'm processing what's going on. But what I had to tell him is that we cannot, as Black people, keep being re-surprised, right, or re-traumatized by the evil that many or some or whatever how you want to call it, white Americans bring into our lives. The trauma the evil that they bring. We can't keep being re-surprised or re-traumatized. We got to stop watching that shit. We got to stop looking at the videos because we know at the end what's going to happen, and we don't realize that that's subconsciously messing with us deeply, right? So a lot of our issues is tied to that hate, right? So I think, so what I told my friend yesterday is that one of the issues is that we have to not allow their evil to take our minds.
And we're letting that happen.
Because they're taking our minds, right? It's traumatizing us, right? And when it traumatizes us, it drives us crazy, right? That's how trauma works, right?
Yep.
Trauma works when something traumatizes